Great. Yes, thank you so much for having us to the Municipal Art Society and Housing Works. I'm really excited to be able to speak to James and Karla this evening. This is the second book that we've worked on together, and their knowledge of all of the things that make New York City great is really unmatched and special and focused on all the details. So to kick things off, guys, this is something I don't know either. It'd be great to hear about how you guys first met and what your first photographic project together was.
Well, we met in the Lower East Side in the 1980s, and James and I, kind of have an unusual relationship in that we became friends and remained friends for many years before we even ever dated. And I'd say the reason why we were friends for so long is that we shared a lot of interests together, including photography. That really, united us. And when we finally did start dating and we got married like 3 months later, because we knew so much about one another, we didn't really, there was really nothing to hide or anything like that. It was all there all. We began to document the city's changing streetscape, and in particular, its graffiti art culture. And that was in the late 1980s, because at the time, graffiti art was undergoing a transition where it was not being painted on really the trains anymore because, it was not allowed anymore. I mean, they really cracked down on it. And it was being painted more on the streets. And we weren't interested really in so much like the vandalism end of graffiti, but in particularly the large murals. And we were just traveling around and just, seeking it out. So, yeah.
Cool. As everyone here who's familiar with your work probably knows, the vast majority of it is really concerned with preserving New York City's history through your images. When did you guys begin to photograph local businesses? And was that like a conscious decision, or did it just kind of happen naturally as you went about your... Oh yeah. Thank you.
Well, we we began to photograph New York City's, I like to call them, not their just small independently owned businesses, but I like to call it mom and pop businesses, the colloquial term, because, mom and pop lived above the store back in the day. In fact, there's one in our book, Russ and Daughters, and they did for a time live above their store. But the reason we began to photograph these stores was coming from that graffiti background, which I touched on before. We were always interested in looking at signage of stores and like the hand-painted signs, the big neon signs, because it's all about manipulating the lettering style in graffiti art. So we were always taking inspiration from looking at these stores' front signs. And we were traveling a lot in these outer boroughs. James and I, as Genevieve mentioned, live in the East Village. And in the 1980s, the East Village was undergoing a lot of changes, gentrifying, of course, and stores began to disappear. But I can tell you that it wasn't in the East Village that we began to photograph the stores. It was really going into the outer boroughs like Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, like these small little neighborhoods that probably, honestly, we would never have gone to those neighborhoods if it hadn't been for graffiti bringing us there. But we would go there and then we would like, oh, wait a minute, what happened to that store that used to be there a few months ago? Because we'd often go back and forth to the same neighborhood multiple times. Graffiti artists tend to be creatures of habit. They stick to a safe spot to paint. They'll paint it over and over and over again, like, not the same day, but like after a few months have passed. And we said, wait a minute, what happened to that small, like, little candy store that was on the corner? We went in there, and the woman who owned it was so charming. I remember getting a pack of gum or soda or something like that. We had a short conversation with her. And when that store would close, somehow the neighborhood didn't look the same anymore. It didn't feel the same anymore. And it kind of lost, honestly, the very charm, like the very reason we were attracted to the neighborhood in the first place. It was diminished because of the closure of these stores. So kind of like a light bulb went off in our head, and then we said, you know what? Just like graffiti is a temporary art form, that if you don't take the picture, we learned this lesson, you don't take the picture that day, and this is all filmed, this is 1980s, no digital, no cell phone camera, none of that stuff, that didn't exist. It was all 35 millimeter film that we were using, that if we didn't take the picture that day, we could go back, it could be gone. And the stores, honestly, oh wow, if I hold this close, it's super loud. I don't think I need that. The stores, to us, felt the same way. Like, we should begin capturing these because they're disappearing.
Right.
And
so it was purely aesthetically driven, the project when we started it. We were just drawn to the look of these stores.
right, I mean, you can see the cover image that we chose for Storefront NYC, which, again, this is the project that we worked on with Ali. That was published last year in 2023, was the pub date. The reason we chose Vesuvio Bakery for the cover is this is like kind of the quintessential, like, to us, one of the reasons why we started the project is we were attracted to not only the hand-painted, you could see the gold leaf lettering in the window, but the window displays, like, it was just an inviting sort of store. And I remember when we first discovered this was on Prince Street. It's still there today, but I'll talk about that very, very briefly because...
We went to a record store across the street. It was called Rocks in Your Head, if you're into vinyl. And we saw the bakery, and we went in and got lard bread for the first time.
Right. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. That was the thing. That's why we kind of moved. We settled in the East Village at the time. It was a rather inexpensive place to be able to get an apartment, and we found this bakery by happenstance because we were vinyl shopping, and we're like, oh, look at that! And not only look at that, but smell that, because they would bake all their bread in their coal-fired oven, which was in their basement. And it was owned by an Italian family, D'Apolito family. And I mean, the aroma coming into the street, I mean, they baked in the, like, early in the morning, so but still, I don't know, it just lingered in the air, like, and all the breads that they would have in the window there, it just drew us right in. So,
but lard bread isn't as
right.
off-putting as it sounds.
Right. Lard bread was their term. Now they call it prosciutto bread because it has flecks of prosciutto, and it was inexpensive, it was filling, and what we liked about it, it was like a meal into itself. We would just walk around because, like I said, we didn't have a lot of money. We would just walk, save to, at that time, I think probably we were still buying 45s a lot, like, or 12 inches, because we couldn't even, an album was a luxury item for us. But we loved their lard bread, we loved their prosciutto bread, and it would keep for a really long time. So if you didn't finish it that day, you could, go.
No, but sounds great.
It's extra good. It's been redone. Like, Vesuvio Bakery still exists today, but it's not an Italian bread bakery anymore. They do sell a prosciutto bread. I don't know if they have it every single day, but we have gotten it from there. But they don't do any of the baking on the premises. But I mean, we're happy that it's still there in a form today.
That's, a great example of also the type of photography you guys are probably best known for, in which you published the most books on, the exteriors of storefronts. For this new book, which we have here, it'd be great to talk about, why you're interested in highlighting the city's bars in particular.
Well, we focused on bars because we've always photographed bars, and a couple are included in our Storefront NYC book. And in fact, the cover image is the interior of Pete's Tavern, but the exterior of Pete's Tavern is in our Storefront NYC book. But we focused on bars because we consider it, and probably many of you do, I think most of you probably do, to be the heart of New York City's culture and its neighborhoods. And there's a famous Ernest Hemingway quote, and we actually use it in the introduction to our book, that he famously said, "Don't bother with churches, government buildings, or city squares. If you want to know about a culture, spend a night in its bars." And there's no truer statement, to us, because bars have always been like melting pots, a place where people from all different cultures and different backgrounds can mingle, have a drink together. And, kind of like where relationships often start, we've heard from many people, especially now that this book has been published. Oh, wow, and I went on my first date there, and, really heartfelt stories. But also, above all, and this touches upon James and I, is that even though New York is like super big and there's millions of people that live here, oftentimes they live in very small apartments. I mean, James and I live in a studio apartment. It's I guess large by New York studio standards, but when you go out of New York City, people they'll see our apartment, they'll be like, oh my God, how do you guys do it? And no, this is great. We have a bathroom, and it doesn't have a window, and so that.
Our bathroom.
Right, our bathroom doesn't have a window. We were excited about that because when we were developing our own film then. So when we were shown the apartment,
perfect.
He's like apologizing. And we're like, no, yes, this is perfect for us. And the kitchen doesn't have a window either. It's just like a little tiny galley. And we're like, we could always, if the bathroom fails and we need like a second place, so we could just, develop our film in the kitchen too. So anyway. Because these small isolating apartments are, so prevalent, people need a place to go and, kind of be with other people
or be alone together.
Right.
You can all go out and just be alone.
Right. So, you're alone, but you're alone with other people. And that, to us, was really the very, very reason why we said, the bars, they need their own project.
Cool. In the previous Storefronts books, the photography was focused solely on exterior shots, but for this book, we made the decision to include interiors also. It would be great to hear about that, and I think, so you guys just saw the exterior of McSorley's, and this is the interior.
Well, going back just to the exterior for a second, just to talk about it, McSorley's has been in business. If you're not familiar with it, it opens up our book, and the reason we chose it as the first bar to be inside our book, it's like you open the pages and there it is it just the quintessential New York bar. Not only has it been in business since 1854, but it's has a historical significance too, because it's actually the last bar in New York City to admit only men. And it was famously known for its slogan, good ale, raw onions, and no ladies. And they still serve onions. They're sliced onions. It's usually with saltines and a plate of cheese. But at any rate, female customers were admitted to most establishments, most bars by 1960. But the owners of McSorley's were adamant that they did not want their bar to change. Like it was really a time capsule, and they didn't want any ladies inside. And what happened was that a lawsuit came to be, which is Seidenberg versus McSorley in 1970. The women, they took them to court, and guess what? McSorley's lost. The women won. And it resulted in McSorley's Law. That's the name of the law. And it prohibits sex discrimination in not only bars, but restaurants, golf clubs, airplanes, public accommodations. Right. And we, in a kind of like, I think it's a funny 180, the bar now is owned by a woman. Her name is Teresa Mar de la Haba. She took over from her father, Matty, who had passed away.
Yeah, just recently.
Not too long ago, a couple of years ago. And she is also not only the owner of the bar, but she's the first woman to actually work as a bartender behind the bar. So we can go on to the next slide about the interiors. For our storefront book, and really the other publications that we've had in the past focused always on the facade, the exterior of the storefront. Because to us, it was all about really making the storefront the hero of the story. Like, we didn't want you to focus on anything else. We wanted you to see the facade because really it was a call to action for people to go to these places, these small shops, and buy something there so they could keep on thriving for many more generations to come. But with the bar book, we said, you know what? We're not doing it justice. We're not doing the bars justice by just having the exterior. We need to give people more of a reason to go inside and help support these bars. We have to showcase their gorgeous interiors because, boy, do some of them have breathtaking interiors. And McSorley's, like I said, one of the reasons we picked it for that, opening spread is it's pretty much original interior. You could see sawdust on the floor, the potbelly stove over to the left, all the portraits and different framed posters and caricatures, everything that's hanging on the walls, years and years and years of stuff. I mean, it's amazing. And the thing is that a lot of people go into a bar and they may be so focused on maybe like having a drink and like escaping from the world, their worries, whatever, or just, celebrating something with someone and just having their drink, that they're just staring at their drink, or maybe it's a workspace, the bar is a workspace and they're just looking at their laptop. I don't know, but they're never really looking around. But we wanted people to open their eyes and say, hey, here's another reason to go inside. Check it out, because there's so many details. I mean, there's a wanted poster for Abe Lincoln hanging on the wall. It's like back behind the bar to the left, for his assassin, not for Abe Lincoln, for his assassin. Yeah. And also, you could see fireman hats. They're above that frame photo there. There's fireman hats that were left from different firefighter.
The most moving is the turkey wishbone.
Right. The turkey wishbones, you can see there's a gas lamp. Those are all original fixtures. Like, it used to be candlelit because...
Right underneath those two bowls.
Right. 1854, there was no central heating. So you had your pot-bellied stove, but you also had lighting by candlelight. And then it became gas-powered, and now they're electrified. But what those turkey wishbones symbolize is that they're left by the doughboys, which is the term for World War I soldiers. And they placed the turkey wishbone on that gas lamp, kind of like for wishful thinking, like the hope that they would return from the war. And the ones that are still there, sadly, represent, all the fallen soldiers, the guys that never made it back home. And it's pretty interesting because this photo is a more recent photo. In fact, all the photos that are in our Great Bars of New York City book are recent photos. And we wanted it to be that way because we want you to go to the bar and say, oh, wow, I can look for that. Like, that's still there. This is how the bar looks, pretty much today. I mean, most were taken in 2023. We had photographed McSorley's back in the early 2000s when we first began, documenting these mom and pop businesses. And I can tell you those turkey wishbones back then, we have photos, were covered in cobwebs and dust. I don't know if you've been to McSorley's, but yeah, it seamlessly was covered in a lot of dust. And when we spoke with Teresa, the owner, she told us, when the health inspectors came and they were doing the grading system, that's when things changed from the A, B, C, D, rating the cleanliness of the bars, which is a good thing. They told her, listen, I'm sorry, but your bar is clean, but you forgot up there. And she's like, I don't want to touch them. They're revered and they're so old. She told us that she was so afraid when she had to take them down. She I think said she used tweezers and a little makeup brush to carefully brush them off. And anyway, it just always struck us because it's just a little detail that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily see. But we love it. We love that it's not in this photo, but another photo that's in our book. There's on the back bar, there's a golden rule of be good or be gone, is kind of like the golden rule of Sorley's. And you go in there today, and it's not like, there's no loud TV with sports blaring. There's no, music really playing or anything like that. It's just the quintessential bar where you can go and just Yeah,
Yeah,
B.
just briefly, they only have light and dark beer. When you order a beer, you get 2 little glass mugs.
Right, they're called schooners. So we always tell people, if you're going for the first time, bring a friend, because you're gonna get 2 drinks, really, whether you like it or not. They'll come in 2 separate glasses. So it's either dark. Don't try to order Heineken. It's just their McSorley's ale, either dark or light. Their light is like an Irish malt, and their dark is like a heavier variety, I would say.
Nice. Yeah, one of the most fun things about this project is seeing all of your detail photography inside of the bars. There's such cool stuff. Having been to many of them over the years, you just don't notice these things when you go into a business to get a drink or hang out. And yeah, it's fun to have a moment to focus on them. In putting together a book like this, of course, we had to pick which bars to include. It would be cool to include them all, but we had to choose. So it'd be great if you guys can explain the process of deciding what to include and the choice to stick to Manhattan.
The editing process was definitely a challenge because, I mean, we've personally been to and spent time at so many places. So when first deciding, okay, what should we include in the book, narrowing it down to just Manhattan made it a lot easier, because just Manhattan alone, I mean, was a hard enough process of just narrowing it down to 30 bars. We knew we only had room really in the book because you're given a page count. You have to adhere to it. You can't just make it an encyclopedia that it keeps on growing and growing and growing. It has to be that certain amount. So we knew that there had to be 30. We said, well, then Manhattan, that helps. Now we can just deal with Manhattan. And we said, you know what? We don't want to have just historic bars. A lot of people are under the misconception that James and I only photograph like old businesses. So that's not true. We photograph new businesses as long as they're independently owned. So it doesn't necessarily have to be old for us to have an interest in it. It just has to be independently owned. So first of all, like McSorley's, that was like, a given, right? We're never not going to include McSorley's. It's so old, so much history, and richly beautiful in the interior as well. But we also wanted to include neighborhood spots. Like, neighborhood spots meaning, like, maybe if you didn't live in the neighborhood, you wouldn't know about the bar, because it's, back before, like, the internet and, social media, you would never hear about it unless you wandered into the neighborhood. Also dive bars, too. We wanted to, it be a broad spectrum. So no matter what your, personal taste was, as far as, what type of bar you like to hang out at, you'll find one in the book that meets your taste. And I guess a great example would be of a neighborhood sort of bar. I mean, now maybe more people have heard of it. And I'm sporting the shirt, as you can see. I'm self-advertising for them. There's 7B, a.k.a. Horseshoe Bar, a.k.a. Vazak. Now, why does it have 3 names? And it's because it's so old that if you're an old-timer, like James and I, not that old-timer, but before it was known by its other names, it actually had no name at all. It was a catering hall, and it was called Vazak Catering Hall. And on the exterior photo, you could see Vazak Hall. There was an old ghost sign. This is one of the only older photos that we used from the book, because we wanted to include that old ghost sign. In 2023, was it? Yeah, 2023, the building was covered in scaffolding for a while, but you don't need to know all those details. But when the scaffolding came down, they had the whitewashed, all the old. Yeah, there was the facade repair. That's, it was necessary, but it got all whitewashed. So that's an old, what they call a ghost sign. So a sign from an old business. So when it began, which to be a bar, it really had no name. The owner that currently owns it, Nicole Hudson, she took over from her father, who took over from his father. So her grandfather is the one who really started it being called Vazak. Bought it from the Vazak family. And it has all the original interior. If you go to
And it's on 7th and B. I'm sure a lot of you
Right.
know it. It was in that TV show Russian Doll, the Natasha Lyonne
Yes,
show.
exactly. Well, there's a bunch of, depending on your age, there's a bunch of places that you might recognize the interior from. So people nowadays call it either 7B because it's actually located on the corner of East 7th Street and Avenue B, or they call it Horseshoe Bar because of its huge horseshoe-shaped bar. James and I call it Vazak still because that's how we remember it from back in the day. Yeah, when we were first really hanging out, we hung out a lot at Tompkins Square Park. We were into punk music, and there's a lot of concerts and things happening, and it's right there at the corner of the park. And it's really to us like a gem of the neighborhood. It's beautiful inside. It has these Tudor windows that you could see that let a lot of light in. Christmas time, like you saw in the exterior photo, it's perfect. It should look like that, except for that the Go sign is gone. They decorated for Christmas, but the light coming through like the multi-paned windows are just so pretty. And inside, original bar, the glassware that you see actually dates back from when it was a catering hall. So I said to them, Nicole, how can this be? You guys don't break any glasses? She's like, there's so many glasses that we have so many that we're just still using them on, which I thought was amazing. And the original booths, it's just really awesome to go inside. Did we put another slide? Yes. Look, when you go inside, look at the booths because there's a lot of famous photos. This is what I was telling you about why we had to include these interior details. If you might hang out just at the bar and not go to this booth, you might not realize and take a look at these famous people who hung out at the bar, including Iggy Pop, who lived in the Christodora building. The Christodora building is that big, beautiful old building which is just down the street on Avenue B, but on the other end of the park. So, not on 7th, I think it's like between 9th and 10th. Is it the corner of 9th? Yeah, you're right. It is the corner of 9th. So he lived there, and he would often, go to Vazak. And also, there's framed photos of Carol O'Connor, because he was in, let me get this right, the movie Law and Disorder, 1974. Also Ernest Borgnine. There's the other films you already mentioned, Netflix, Natasha Lyonne. But right, Crocodile Dundee, 1986. The Australian protagonist meets a sex worker at the bar. In 1974, it was the scene of the mafia hit in The Godfather 2. I don't know if you're into The Godfather as the Pantanello brothers, something like that. Like there's the strangle scene, and then they run outside. I remember the scene distinctly in my head.
Yeah, you see down Avenue B.
Yeah, exactly. And in 2013, it was used for the rom-com Begin Again, starring Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley. So yeah,
That's
quite.
what the owner says brings the most people in. Believe it or not.
Well, younger crowd. They'll remember it from there. Whereas, they may have never seen, Godfather Part 2.
Or The Verdict.
The Verdict with Paul Newman, exactly. So yeah, just a really, really great spot. Really welcoming, like a lovely, lovely vibe there.
It is a good one. You touched on this a little bit, but in deciding which bars to include in the book, we talked about types of bars. Just other considerations that went into our discussion about types of bars would be great to hear a little bit about.
Yeah, so for the bars, we touched upon that we want to include historic places, neighborhood spots, dive bars, but we also want to include places that have a lot of cultural significance as well. They may be historic, but they're known for their cultural significance. And one such place is Stonewall Inn is included in our book. This is not Stonewall Inn. Now, a lot of people know Stonewall Inn and they think that it's the oldest gay bar in New York City, but you are wrong. As Marissa Tomei would say, if you're a fan of My Cousin Vinny. No, you're wrong. It's Julius. It's on West 10th Street at the corner of Waverly Place. So it's not too far from Stonewall Inn, just a short walk. And it's in pretty like old building built in 1826, and it became a bar in 1864. And in the 1930s, it was allegedly named Julius because the owner had a basset hound named Julius, and there used to be, sadly, they're no longer there. You can see that they're no longer there. But along the there was footrests along the bar of these basset hounds. They were bronze. They were beautiful. We actually have interior photos of what we took in the 2000s when the footrests were still there. But sadly, some of them got broken, one or two got stolen, and there goes the footrest. But they're talking about the history of why it is the oldest gay bar. In the early 1900s, it wasn't really a gay bar. It catered to writers, artists, and performers, including celebrity press photographer Ouija. Singer Billie Holiday was set to perform there. But it started attracting like a gay clientele in the 1950s, even though at that time, it was illegal to serve what they called suspected homosexuals. That was what you would be, arrested for. And you would get charged with disorderly conduct. So patrons at the time included Tennessee Williams, the playwright, novelist Truman Capote, and ballet dancer Rudolph Nureyev. There's some, you'll see, if you go inside, I think we have another, the next slide. There's a lot of framed photos on the wall, and there's some of Truman Capote and Nureyev. But this is the significant thing. On April 21st, 1966, and that's 3 whole years before the first brick was ever thrown at Stonewall Inn, is what happened was the members of this group called the Mattachine Society organized what would become later known as a sip-in. And it was led by the activists Dick Leitch, Craig Rodwell, and you'll see the picture there on the bottom left, and John Timmons. What they did is they ordered a drink, like they had, planned this. They ordered a drink, and they announced themselves to the bartender as homosexuals. And the bar had just recently been raided. So the bartender was like, I'm not going through that again. And he put his hands over, like he had already started pouring the drink, but he put his hand over the drink saying, no, I'm not going to serve you. And that moment, you could see the picture, was caught by the New York Times press photographer who was with them, and it made the headlines, and it proclaimed 3 deeds, you could see, invite exclusion by bars. And it caused a big uproar, and it led to the activists challenging the New York State Liquor Authority in court to the decision that they had right to peaceful assembly, and it paved the way for legal gay bars to open. And really, it was a catalyst for the greater LGBTQ movement in general. And in 2015, Julius, thankfully, was recognized for its historic significance by being placed on the New York State Register of Historic Places, and then followed later in 2022, it was also given landmark status. And if you go inside, you can see that they have the plaques inside hanging by the bar. And I mean, I can't tell you more about how welcoming, if you just go back to the previous slide, James, how welcoming this bar is. It's owned by Helen Buford, who took over, her deceased husband had purchased it, and she was not really that involved in it. He was really running the show, and he passed away, and she was kind of like, the bar kind of landed in her lap. And I can tell you, she's been such a wonderful steward of the place, just so welcoming, and not only to the Mattachine Society, which they hold like regular meetings there in the back room, but just in general to the whole community. The nicer person she couldn't be. In fact, during the pandemic, we helped her. They had a lot of difficulties financially. This bar she doesn't own the building. She just owns the bar. Now, going back to that, like I digress a little bit. What we learned from our storefront book is that the number one reason why businesses close is that they don't own the building that they're located in. Now, Helen really struggled during the pandemic. They weren't open for a while, and then when they could open, she really couldn't get like the permitting to have the tables outside. It was like this whole big thing because of the neighborhood and this, that, and I think they were doing construction nearby. There was a lot of red tape involved, but she was really financially hurting. And we helped her with a GoFundMe campaign. We put it up on our social media to raise awareness about it, that they could really, really, really use the help. I mean, Stonewall also got a lot of help, but I mean, Stonewall is better known, so it ended up receiving federal funding as well. But she needed like help right away, and we couldn't be happier that she weathered the storm, and that we were able to help in any little way that we could. But be sure to go in there. It's not just to have a drink. They have great burgers. You could see right over there. There's like a little mini kitchen, like it's right in view. They make an excellent burger, and it's super, super affordable as well. So
it is the best.
Yeah, yeah. So another little like gem that you wouldn't think, you'd be like, oh, that's just a place to drink at. But no, good burger, and it's not going to cost you like $35 like at another place that's in our book for a burger.
And there's so much history on the walls, all of these different flyers and photographs and ephemera. It's really fun to look around when you're in there, if it's not too busy, which it often is because it is so fun and great.
Yeah, and the wooden beer barrel, the beer barrels too. The bar is propped up by these Jacob Rupert old beer barrels, and then they use them for seating and like, for the bottom of the tables as well.
Yes. So it's clear, I think, that in doing the work you guys do over the years, you personally get to know so many of these, as you say, mom and pop business owners personally, and you really champion them by turning your lens to them, by publishing books that contain photographs, by covering them on your YouTube channel. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of a type of activism, really, I think, trying to help stave off the creeping gentrification and normalification of the city by preserving and reminding all of these great independent, special, one-off types of places. How do you guys think about this, and how much are you kind of keeping that in mind day to day as you're going around photographing?
I mean, I don't think a day goes by that we don't think about it. Really, for us, the project became like an artistic intervention for us in a way. Like, just our way of giving back to the city that we love. I mean, I'm a born and bred New Yorker. You could probably hear from my accent. Can't hide it. We just love New York City so much, and it's just our way of giving back to the community, especially because we feel like these little stores and the bars, they're so important to each neighborhood, and they make each neighborhood unique. And like I was touching upon with the owner, Helen Buford at Julius, is that the number one reason when we would go into these bars and these small businesses, and even though if we backtrack to like the late 1990s when we first began photographing the mom and pop businesses, even though James was mentioning the project was very visually based and in the beginning, it was all about the look and feel of the exterior of the storefront. It was really going inside and talking to the owners, because that's something that we did right from the get-go, is we would go inside, and I guess we really wanted to find out, like, why did this business close where the one down the block is still open? They started, like, whatever, just say 1900, same year. Why did one close? One is gone. Did they have a secret recipe? Maybe, but they were both bakeries. Like, was one clearly better than the other? No, that's not usually the reason. We would ask them these always pointed questions, and they would tell us, like, oh, we don't own the building. We're at the mercy of our landlord. In fact, we have 3 more years left on our long-term lease, because at the time, back in the day, landlords used to sign like 20, 30, 40, 50-year leases. I mean, just to make sure that that money would still be coming in like month to month, year after year, because the property wasn't worth that much. But what happened in the 2000s, I mean, and this is when I think really things got like intense, is like, 2003, 2004, I think that's when we saw like a huge amount of businesses starting to close, is that long-term leases were up, the neighborhoods were gentrifying, they were changing, and the rents would go sky high to the point where they couldn't make ends meet anymore. They couldn't pay these ridiculous, prices that was being demanded. I mean, in our Storefront NYC book, there was a little candy store called Katie's Candy in Bed-Stuy. I remember when we went in, she told us, "Oh yeah, the landlord, she's gonna kick me out. They want to make this building into a luxury condo." And we're like, if you looked at the place, we're like, "Oh, luxury condo? No, that's not gonna happen here." And she's like, "Oh yeah, that's what he wants to do, and it's only a matter of time." And sadly, it did close. I won't even go into the sad story about that, but the gentrification, it's always been on our mind, because in our own neighborhood, it's been gentrifying around us. I mean, honestly, we couldn't afford our apartment if we hadn't been living there since the 1980s, when, like I said, it was inexpensive. It was a much, much, much different time. So it's something that we think about all the time. In fact, we travel and we say to ourselves, James and I were...
We're not doing any storefront stuff.
Right. We went backpacking in Europe, and one of the places we backpacked to was Krakow in Poland. And when we got back, our friend was like, "Oh, did you see Wawa Castle? How do you like it?" And we're like, guess what?
No.
Never went. Our hotel was across the street. I mean, we couldn't see it from, we did see it from our window. We could see it from our window. We never actually went up and visited it, because we got so sidetracked. We started wandering around these little alleyways and these little streets, and we found all these little mom and pop stores. It was freezing cold when we were there. I remember we stopped and look at this place.
Yeah, what? Hat maker.
Right, a hat maker. We need a hat. I had to keep myself warm. Oh, well, we're cold and it's raining. Oh, what's this smell coming here? Oh, it looks like they have pierogies inside. And then we're greeted by this woman, and she gives us borscht just because we looked cold. We didn't even ask for it. She didn't speak English. We don't speak any Polish. She just figured, we needed it, and we nod. Did our best, dobre den. But yeah, it just been all-consuming, I guess you could say, and a great example of how things can survive gentrification is Rudy's Bar and Grill. And we included in our book, this is a true New York dive bar. I mean, true dive bar. And it actually dates back to before Prohibition. It was said to be a speakeasy. It's actually one of the first bars in New York City to receive a New York State liquor license. And it's owned, it's called Rudy's because it was originally owned by Helen Rudy. She was a German, so it's like, I guess, kind of like a German bar. And it was always catered to people in the neighborhood, especially the seafaring guys, because Hell's Kitchen were nearby the docks that used to line, the river, which I guess really used to come, there was no 11th Avenue, I don't even think back then. The water lapped up a lot closer than it does now. There's been a lot of infilling. Erin, by the way, is in our book too. That's another one where the water used to come up right up to the bar, footsteps really to the outside of it. But Rudy's has always been the kind of like a working man's bar, very affordable, and just the quintessential New York dive bar. And to this day, you could go inside. Did we include an interior photo? I think we did.
Yeah.
You can go inside and you can get a beer, a shot of whiskey for $5, and a free hot dog. With every drink purchase, you get a free hot dog. And this is something that Rudy's has been doing for years and years and years. And that's just because, was a nice thing to do for the guys that were drinking there, give them a little bit of a meal as well. And they still do that to this day. So you can go there and $10 in your pocket, you've got a meal, you got drinks, you're set. You're set. You won't break the bank. However, don't feel intimidated that it's only like a working man's bar, because even though it has its roots in that, a lot of people go there. A lot of famous people have gone there. In fact, if you're familiar with Steely Dan, there's a song, In the Corner of My Eye, I saw you at Rudy's, you were very high. Or I saw you in Rudy's, it is, you were very high. And also, Guns N' Roses, Slash from Guns N' Roses, was a regular there. Julia Roberts, the present owner, Danny Pamphless, who took over from Jack Ortel. Jack Ortel bought it from the Rudy family. Jack Ortel, sadly, just recently passed away, just a few months ago. In fact, in the publication of the book, he was still the owner, but now he passed it to the longtime manager, Danny Pamphless. They've kept the vibe the same. It's nothing's changed. It's still that working man's bar. So go check out Rudy's.
And a fun fact I enjoyed a lot is the pig outside the front of Rudy's.
Oh yeah, that's Baron. He's Baron.
Baron von Swine.
Yeah, he's been stolen a couple of times, but now you can't steal him because he's like bolted. He's
there.
They sell beer taps.
Right, they have like a
That are like
tap that has him on it, right?
Right. It was made by there's one of the artists that goes to Rudy's. Yeah, he made those bar taps and for Jack. So it's pretty cool.
This image is a great way to discuss my next question, which is that we decided pretty early on not to include any people in the photographs in the book. Why did we do that?
There's no people in any of the photos because we wanted the hero to be the bar's interior. I mean, for the exterior, that's something also we don't generally like people in the photos because we really want whatever the subject is, that to be the shining star. So if you put a person in a photo, naturally, like as human beings, our eye will gravitate to looking at a human being. So we wanted you to be able to see all the details like we saw. Like, this is Minetta Tavern, gorgeous interior again. There's all these caricatures that are lining the walls. So if there was lines of people, not only would it obscure the details, but you might just be looking at the details.
Right. And you can better imagine yourself there, I think, if there's no one in the photograph,
exactly.
Which is sort of a nice thing. Especially if you don't live here, you're looking at these photographs and thinking, wouldn't it be fun to go check this place out? Which feels more, easy to imagine maybe if there's no one in the images. Up here we have our cover star, which is Pete's Tavern on 18th and Irving Place. It'd be great to talk about how this became our cover image.
Right, being the cover image, it's a very important thing for a book. And it was a hard decision. I mean, it wasn't only our decision, it was a team effort with Ali and the team at Prestel. To us, Pete's Tavern it's an amazing bar with a lot of history, been in business since 1864, and famously, interesting for this time of year, it's where O. Henry is said to have written the Christmas story, The Gift of the Magi. In fact, it's that booth, I think, do we include another slide?
Yeah.
The next slide shows the booth. That's the booth where he wrote the story. He lived at a boarding house just down the street and just was hanging out at the bar all the time. He's actually wrote another short story there as well, just not as well known. But it's so much history, and to us, I mean, it's just another New York quintessential bar that pretty, affordable for being in the Gramercy area as well. I mean, I think burger is like, you can get a burger there for around $20 with their fries. You know, give or take, I might be a dollar or two off, but it's not crazy expensive. And very, very, very welcoming, and it's beautifully decorated for Christmas. So if you go check it out now, you know this.
Yeah, we were just there.
We were actually just there earlier this morning. We stopped in to say hi to Gary Egan. He's the owner. He painstakingly decorates it for Christmas with thousands of red lights aligned in the ceiling. All these beautiful little, moving. What would you call them? In the windows.
Yeah, like a Ferris wheel.
Yeah, like the Wonder Wheel, like, and it actually moves, like a little wooden.
Little landmarks
Like
decorated for
miniatures.
Christmas.
Yeah, miniatures, exactly, and just beautiful, beautiful vibe, and yeah, I mean the whole purpose of this book really is to get you guys to go and frequent these bars. You don't have to drink. You can just get a liquid death and get water and get a hot dog with it at Rudy's. Why not? One of our friends that's in the audience, that's exactly that's what he did when we were there. We had a book signing event. But please, the whole purpose of all our books is to raise awareness that without your support, without the customers, these little stores would never survive. Whether they own the building or not, it's irrelevant, really. I mean, it of course helps when they own the building, but all of them need your support. And, we want them to stay for many, many, many years to come. And they're really an important part of the fabric of our neighborhood.
The last one.
Yes.
Yeah.
My last question.
Very
is-
last before we have to end, because the venue, thank you to Housing Works, does close promptly at 8 o'clock, and we want to leave time for Q&A. But Ali, you go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, so we have bars that look many different types of ways in this book, really just exciting visually. But I know that you guys have a particular favorite from an aesthetic and architectural point of view, which is this one. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about
Right.
Campbell.
This is, we included not only neighborhood bars, dive bars, historic bars, ones with cultural significance like the LGBTQ movement, but also like places where there's an elevated cocktail experience. So this isn't your place to get your darker light, like McSorley's. This is the Campbell. And many of you may not know about it because it's actually tucked away in a discreet corner of Grand Central Terminal. You can enter from like the street that has now Vanderbilt Avenue. There's like a little door, like there's a tiny little sign, and then you go up these stairs. And it was actually the apartment for the financier, John Campbell. And we fell in love with it. It wasn't a bar in the beginning. It was his own private apartment. And we just fell in love with it because from an architectural standpoint, I mean, it's gorgeous. And look at the quatrefoil design of the balcony, the big leaded glass, the window, just like in Grand Central Terminal. I mean, the way it lets the natural light come through, I mean, it looks different at night. I mean, it's hard to get there during the day now, but they are open on the weekends. I'm positive of that, so you can see it during the day when the light's coming through, because it's really stunningly beautiful. But it's not only one of our favorite from our architectural standpoint, but it also happens to be one of the things that surprised us the most when we were working on the project is that it actually had fallen into disuse. That after John Campbell passed away, it actually became like an MTA like police station, and there was a jail by like where the bar was, a signalman's office for the MTA, and
It was just full of garbage.
yeah, and I mean it went under. 1999 is when it was first renovated at a cost of $1.5 million by the former owners, and now it's owned by the Gerber Group, who additionally did more renovation in it. And I mean, it's pricey, but it's stunningly beautiful. So like I said, we've got something, we got you covered. No matter what your tastes are, whatever your, drinking vibe is. I think, I'm proud of the work James and I and Ali did together in selecting these bars, and yeah, we hope you enjoy it as well. So yeah, we'll open it up to some questions now from the audience.
I just remember, Rudy's when I'd be going there, that's pretty cleaned up in that picture, because I remember duct all over the.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's funny that you mention that, because during the pandemic is when they took that time to get the duct tape off of the chairs and the booths, and they reupholstered them. And in fact, Pete's Tavern, the same thing. Pete's Tavern wasn't open during the whole pandemic, not at all. Like some bars opened, like when you could have like limited amount of people, etc., but they did not open at all. And the owner took the time to restore the interior, paint, like redo all like the gold leaf inside. I mean, if you go there, take a look at the details, and you can just appreciate in your mind, like, the love and the care that went into it. But yeah, Rudy's used their time. Danny told us, yeah, we got rid of all that duct tape. We made use of the pandemic time.
You may not want to answer this one. Can you say 2 or 3 of the places that didn't quite make it? Very close, but didn't quite make the book.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, one of the places that I wish made it, but sadly was no longer in business, and that's Lenox Lounge in Harlem. And from an architectural standpoint, oh gosh, gorgeous Art Deco interior, plus the history with jazz. If you're not familiar with it, I mean, every jazz great, played there. And sadly, again, lost to gentrification because of a huge rent increase. And what is it now, a bank or something? I mean, it's something hideous. Whatever it is, it's just like you can't even stomach to look at it. Another place, it's funny that you mentioned this question, that we had been thinking about including, but they were not open when we were taking the photos, is Smith's Bar. Smith's Bar, we just posted sadly about our Instagram. I have some sad news to share. If you don't follow us on Instagram, I'll just do a little quick plug at James and Karla. But Smith's, honestly, we weren't really considering putting that in the book because it had been updated inside and the vibe had changed. But Subway Inn, I mean, we wish we could have included that. I mean, they were forced to move. The family, the Salinas family that owns it, they've gone through so much. I mean, moving 3 times, and now they just sadly, their last date is December 28th. So if you want to say hi to another it was a dive bar back in the day. Wonderful family that presently owns it. They fought the good fight. They did the best they could, forced out of their original location, relocated, forced to move again, and then couldn't get a liquor license and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah. Hope that answers the question. And then some.
And then, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, two-part question. Any great memorable bars in Staten Island, Brooklyn, or Queens? And which bar has the best jukebox in your opinion?
Staten Island Ladies. I guess, Vincent, do you know how to pronounce it?
Which place?
Ladies. It's on the water. Ladies, okay.
Yeah, it's right. He's from Staten Island.
Yeah, he's from Staten Island, so I just deferred to him to make sure that I'm pronouncing it correctly. Duffy's Tavern. I'll give you another one. See, we know our Staten Island. You can't trick me up on that one. Queens.
Caskey's.
Yeah, Caskey's Tavern, Ridgewood. Let's Caskey's Tavern with its amazing neon sign. Yeah, that's a great one. Brooklyn, I would have to say Pharrell's. But listen, save all those because
Yeah, who knows?
you never know. We could have another book with, with the outer boroughs bars. Into Prestel. It looks like there's an interest in it. So yeah, let's go for it. We're up for the task. We'll.
The big change for our neighborhood was Mars Bar, when that closed.
Yeah.
That's when we knew the neighborhood was, when we first moved in our neighborhood, we had people sleeping in our lobby and in the stairwells and stuff. It was a terrible building.
I mean, there's really still no amenities. I mean, honestly, no joke, but we did have to hire like a package attendant because so many packages were getting stolen that,
Well,
what are you gonna do?
When we were young and we were first together, like the Mars Bars and the 7Bs and the Parksides, which is also in the book.
Right,
That was
Sophie's
like-
is another one that's in our book that
Sophie's-
James is
That's on Fifth Street.
advertising as well. That's another
Right.
kind of neighborhood spot that you might not know about, but Anthony Bourdain kind of, he blew it up a little bit.
I thought your neighborhood was untouchable, but then when a TD Bank took over, Mars Bar was.
Right, Mars Bar, very, 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 again, gentrification, forced out, the building torn down, and now it's one of those Avalon luxury apartment buildings.
Sly Fox, we wish we got in there. Yes, Sly Fox.
Oh yeah, well that you could still go to, but that's still in business. I mean, there's so many bars. I mean, KGB bar in our own neighborhood. I mean, we didn't want to make it just an East Village book. We could have easily. It's tough. It's a tough editing process. It really, really is. Don't hate on us for not including your favorite bar. We tried our best.
Cullen's in the Bronx is wonderful.
Yes.
Cullen's.
What
It's,
about the jukebox question?
Oh, the jukebox.
Yes.
Oh,
You know that's a great one, Jim.
that's true. I would say best jukebox, Jimmy's Corner in the book, and you'll see the jukebox in the photo.
They have a bell from the boxing ring in Madison Square Garden up in the front. Like
Yeah.
when you first walk in. And if a tourist rings it, they have to buy the whole bar of the ground.
PJ Clark's has a decent
It's a
jukebox.
secret joke they have.
Yeah, PJ Clark's has a decent jukebox as well.
Yeah, they have nice.
But I would say Jimmy's Corner, especially just because Jimmy's Corner is kind of has a very similar vibe. It's in Times Square area. Very, very similar vibe to Rudy's in that unpretentious and inexpensive. So if you're stuck in Times Square, stuck. If you're forced to go to Times Square, right, you can retreat from your whatever, all those chain things, Don't go to Hard Rock Cafe or.
I picture a father with the kids and family, like, oh, hon, I'll meet you in Disney, and he runs into Jimmy's.
Exactly, right. You can go to the M&M store, and I'll be here.
Times Square had McHale's, which we miss.
Yes,
We go to
I mean-
McHale's all the time.
Countless. They're in our Storefront NYC book, so at least the exterior has been immortalized. Yes?
All right, I have a question. It's more of asking your opinion. Really, we've touched on a lot of stuff about gentrification and changing. And so I'm going to say this more about, I was thinking about a word that I'm thinking, I'm going to ask it more in the sense of Manhattan and so much of the outer boroughs, because I think the outer boroughs, this will occur later. But in today's Manhattan, which is so dominated by gentrification and private equity money and a changing landscape and sort of an acceptance that the man owns it, kind of like less than the people, so to speak. Do you think that in 100 years, like new generations will carry on these type of institutions and these type of aesthetics? Do you think people will be so beat down by, like, the concept of owning something is just so far-fetched, and they go to Jeff Bezos' Amazon's Bar and Grill on the corner, and they don't know any better?
No,
Like,
it's a great
what
question.
do you see the future as this industry, as someone who's seen a lot of it?
Well, I have to say that I am an optimist by nature.
Yeah.
And so is James, right?
Yeah.
But he's a little bit more pessimistic than me. I'm always the glass is half full, where he is more of the glass is half empty, but that's why we get along so well. Because, and you could see I'm the talkative one and he's the more, quiet one. Otherwise, what kind of relationship would we have? Like, we'd just be talking over each other all the time. So, in the optimism's sense, I like to think that, again, the purpose of these books is to help raise awareness, and we have our social media. I mean, we try to post, it's difficult to post. They used to post 7 days a week. I've actually been told by Instagram not to post 7 days a week. I mean, this is from the Instagram, tip, if you don't have a big Instagram account where they try to help you, they try to help us. Not that we asked for it, they just called us up one day and they said, you don't have to post every day, So, word for the wise, you don't have to. But we try to post and help raise awareness because Instagram in particular, we're not so active on Twitter. I mean, Twitter's the younger generation. I mean, and definitely TikTok, I'm sorry, but I hate to be too old, but I guess I'm just a little, I can't fit it all in there. Like Instagram's bad enough, the limiting of the number of characters I can use, because I like to tell a big story, the story behind the photo. So I'd like to say we try to reach out to the younger generation so they don't let it become homogenized. That it's not going to be the Jeff Bezos bar, that they can realize the importance of these small little businesses, that they do make up the character of the neighborhood, that maybe it would be a boring place. New York would be boring without small little independent stores. And
people are smart enough to know authenticity, and I hope that stays. Because it was funny, we were shooting a new place on Avenue A, I'm not going to say the name, and Karla said, "Oh, this place looks so phony." That wasn't her words, but
because we do photograph the new places,
right, just to have them. And it's funny, while she was photographing, 3 minutes later, a woman came by and she said, "Oh, don't photograph that. That's so phony."
No, I think she overheard us. She overheard us. She overheard me, and really, I don't like to be negative about anything, but I was just like, oh, this is, look at this place. But, we'll take a photo because we try to help them. Right. But, it just, everything in I would personally not hang out at the place. It's just not my kind of place. But that doesn't, just because it's not my kind of place doesn't mean it's not attracting a different clientele. And I realize that.
I think the authenticity.
Right.
And people know a crap Italian sandwich versus a real,
right.
Well,
why are you going to have Domino's?
When you go to Rudy's, you're going to know
pizza different. In New York City. Well, I just want to shake the tourists and just be like, no, you don't have to. You don't have to. There's actually a Joe's. That's one of our favorite ones. They opened up pretty near Times Square. It's a short walk. Go there, have a real New York pizza. Don't eat that from that other place. So I am hopeful, and I truly believe, but
it's a scary thought.
It is a scary thought, and we need. Thankfully, like I said, the saving factor is when people support these small little businesses and go to them. Don't give up on them. Don't say, oh, they're never going to make it, so I'm not going to go there. Every little purchase counts. It really does.
And your Instagram and YouTube channel are both such great resources for being pointed to various places. And also, you just have such a wealth of knowledge that you share on them. So I would highly recommend for anyone that doesn't already to follow them.
Oh, thank you.
It's true. I just enjoy it as a civilian, which is great. Yeah.
I do think that there's some type of movement that younger people want to go to see authentic New York bars. I'm like you guys, born and raised in New York. And I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, I went to an old bar on Murray Street. I'm sure you know what it was. It's, I forgot the name of the right? Yeah, I think it was right from that main.
Oh, yeah.
So I was speaking to
it's 2 blocks off of the World Trade Center. Yeah.
The bartender, and he says, on Saturday night, you gotta get all models here. I'm like, really? I was like, oh, what? He goes, yeah. For some reason, they don't want the goofy places. They want authentic New York. So I think there's something to say about a little bit of a movement where, it kind of resonates with either from a younger generation or just people who don't want the hotel bars and they're just tired of it.
Exactly.
People can't own anything though, that's the issue.
That's the
They
thing.
can't own the bars, they can go to them and
Exactly.
like them, but are they gonna be able to own that?
Right. I mean, I feel like it's owning your own business. It's like, you know, the American dream, you know, and I still feel like that's alive, but yes, in Manhattan, it is difficult. I mean, so yeah, well, guys, thanks so much for coming. Thanks to Housing Works for hosting this event and Municipal Art Society for organizing this. You know, they're all about, I mean, we've been fans of Municipal Art Society for so long because it's all about preservation and preserving the character of the city. It means so much to us and to so many New Yorkers and to new New Yorkers alike. So yeah, thank you so much. I just want to tell you that we do have books for sale. 100% of the proceeds goes right back to Housing Works. So
Yeah, Prestel donated.
right, Prestel donated the book. So when if you're purchasing a book tonight, then it's for an extra good cause as well, because you know Housing Works helps support the homeless and you know just amazing people here.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you.